raised south side of Chicago, Illinois. Chicago has always been although it's the third largest city, it's got one third the resources in regards to like entertainment, television, TV. Sports is probably the only entertainment facet that we're actually fully represented in. And with that being said, growing up, coming from the South Side, you're always looking for outlets to try to outreach and get into, the music industry. I knew at maybe 17 years old that I wanted to be an A&R. I had a passion for writing records, creating records, but I didn't necessarily want to ever be an artist. And when I found out that there were individuals who help artists create and craft their records from scratch, I was in love with the opportunity. So I went to school on the South Side as well, Chicago State University, where I met a gentleman by the name of Self who had an opportunity to interview for Def Jam on the street team. And he was generous enough to, introduce me to the street team out there, and I interviewed and ended up joining the street team, and I worked it for 4 years. And eventually, one of the representatives from Universal Music Group noticed the work that I was putting in and kind of, like my determination and my grit. And his name was Dale Hervey. He gave me an opportunity to apply for a college rep position. And college reps essentially market, promote music on college campuses. I was able to get into that slot, and I worked it so long. I was about to graduate, and I had to keep the position. I had to stay in school to keep the position. So half and half, I kind of, reluctantly, well, not even reluctantly, but I made the decision to continue going to school and get my master's just to keep the position. And when I got my master's and upon graduating, they provided me with an opportunity to move out to California, which I'm still stationed to this day. That was 2012. And just kind of take on the role of it as a artist development rep, which is, essentially a label liaison when artists are traveling through the West Coast region. So I had one third of the country as my responsibility. And from that point on, I just kept strategically aligning myself, letting people know that I wanted to do A&R, being vocal about it until the opportunity presented itself. And I was able to work on acts like BJ the Chicago Kid, Lil Durk, Big Sean, a few others. And brought us to where we are now.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Oh my gosh, a master's degree. That's insane. So you reached out to us. What made you want to give back to students? Was that you being in college for so long? I saw that you invited a few young kids to come and work on music and let them come and play in the studio. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think, for me, I just remember being in a space where I think when you're in college, you're learning, or you hope you're learning, the act of creating, or whatever your discipline is. You're trying to learn what it takes to be in that field. And when you finally get a job, you find out that college might have taught you 20 to 30%, and the rest is just real life experience that no one can teach you. Mm-hmm. And so I just would always appreciate if I had somebody to kind of give me a cheat sheet to what was expected. If somebody could just kind of prepare me, hey, focus on this a little bit more. It's going to be a lot more interpersonal than you think. Don't worry about being the best in technical skills, but more so, labor relations, artist relations, how you treat people, establishing just a strong work ethic. Those are the things that, I wish somebody was able to tell me, and maybe even give me some insight on trends within the industry that I should have paid a lot more attention to as I was growing and doing my studies, that would have helped me, excel a little bit quicker. So, just knowing that was a big pitfall. I feel like every generation has a responsibility to pave the way, make things a little bit better for the generation that comes after it. So me reaching out was just, me trying to play my small role in that bigger narrative. And the children in the choir that you saw, that was actually a youth choir, super talented kids, and they were actually able to come and help us finish a couple records where we needed some vocal performance from a youth choir. So that just ended up kind of being a really good experience. Overall, I think they gave me more than I gave them.
Oh, that's such a sweet thing to say. Is that your favorite part of working for them? It's just the feeling of being able to help them?
Yeah, that and the creation. Like when you can, when you know, when you're a child and you're young, that's the most unjaded perspective you'll ever get on life. So to see them genuinely excited to get the right lines right, or to be able to sing in unison as a group and kind of make fun of each other and stuff like that, and you just a part of the moment and you can appreciate the innocence of it all. It's like, uh, who could not be motivated by that? It takes you back to the origin when you first started.
Yeah. Oh, so sweet. I love that. That's awesome. I'll pass it off to Mingyu. I think he wants to ask more exclusive questions about A&R.
Yeah. So as the SVP of A&R, I guess we'll love to hear about like, what your kind of roles are, and then just maybe if you could walk us through with like finding an artist and developing an artist, all works out.
Yeah, I mean, any role in A&R, you have two primary responsibilities. The first is to find acts to sign to a major record label or independent label. You don't even have to be associated with a label to be A&R, but the act of A&R, the first part is finding and developing talent. The development process is the part that actually kind of curates what type of executive that you'll end up being. It's multiple ways to be an A&R. You don't necessarily have to come from a creative lens like me. I was a writer and later assumed production under my belt as well. But the biggest thing is finding talent that you truly believe in, helping that talent identify a path to continuously elevate, grow, and you help curate their sound. That could be finding producers, that could be putting them in a room with writers, that could be challenging them to make bigger records. What does that even mean, right? So, it's going to be different and specific to each artist. Every one single act is bespoke. So, you can't, what you do for one act doesn't necessarily work for others. And like I said, it's multiple facets of doing A&R. If you're not someone who's a creative or a writer, maybe you're a dot connector and you make sure that you connect the acts that you sign with other acts and other talented writers and producers. Maybe you're someone who champions that artist through a building and makes everybody get excited and passionate and kind of explain the narrative of who that artist is, what's important to them, because once the building is so many different departments in a building, someone has to be there to translate to the building the vision for the artist so the building can execute around that vision. And so the messaging to the music, to the marketing, to the vision, to the visuals, all line up in unison. It's a ton of synergy that has to be aligned for things to transpire and continue to grow. And when everything's moving in synchronization, I think that's when you feel like an artist is larger than life, or they've truly hit their moment of stride. And so we're always just trying to build towards that.
So it's very much a collective group effort in that way.
Absolutely. I am at the Mercy. I have a tremendously amazing team around me from the senior level, my chairman and CEO, Aaron Bayshuk and Tom Corson. They've always been super supportive to, my marketing department, all the way down to legal. So, I got a great support system around me, and they allow me to continue to make the moves that I need to strategically and stay focused on the records, because that's my core responsibility and priority, the records.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So on that note, how was your transition to Warner Records? What drew you to Warner?
I think I had just come off a fresh ankle break and I had to take a hiatus for about 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been in the Universal Music Group system my entire career. I was just looking for a fresh start. And a mentor of mine, Chris Atlas, was transitioning over, and he said, "Hey, maybe you want to give us some time and attention. It seems to be a new leaf over there. They're making a new resurgence in the urban music field." And, just kind of took a leap of faith. But a historic building. We just recently lost my host and the founder of the record label. He passed away this previous Sunday, so it's a bit of a grieving moment for the label. But I mean, the acts that they've signed in that building are second to none. We're talking about the same building that Prince came out of. So it's you just got to be mindful of some of the legacy and the tradition and the success that's permeated from those walls. And it's a humbling experience. Just grateful to be in that space.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, big shoes to fill. And kind of going back to A&R, a question that I was personally excited to ask is, when scouting artists, what really sticks out to you? What traits do you look for in upcoming artists?
This is probably going to be the most unpopular answer ever given by an A&R. But I don't think I have ever scouted for an artist.
Really?
I like to think that because, to scout for an artist means that you're specifically looking, right? You're
Okay.
looking, you're trying to find an artist. I've never looked for an artist. Every artist that I've ever signed, ever found came to me by way of the universe. Whether that was, me just scrolling across a record on random via social media and seeing a producer, somebody that I really respect, say, hey, this is next up, or if it was a record that I heard on the radio, or if it was word of mouth and chatter, just people speaking about it, or if I saw a show at South by Southwest that I just fell in love with, like, everything that I've ever been a part of organically was brought to me by the universe. And, when I see it, I want it to be as organic as possible because I don't want to feel like I'm forcing it. I feel like sometimes if you're looking for something, if you don't find it, you feel like it was an unsuccessful mission or journey. So you're subconsciously forced to say, well, I found this act or this could work, but now I'm not really being open to the fact that I might be forcing it, right? This might not be something that would have gotten my attention on a random day. But since I, set out on this journey to hunt and I don't want to come back without any game, now I have to say I found an act. And I just never wanted to be in that space. So I've always kind of just let things come to me organically. And I miss a lot of things, right? There's a lot of big things that I miss. I remember coming out of Chicago and I had a friend, Alex, DJ RTC, and he kept saying, man, come up north and meet this kid, man. He's special. And at the time, I just had such a bad taste in my mouth from that scene. Just everybody was transitioning, moving up north. And I just never really followed through. And he was like, man, you just got to come see this guy, come see this guy. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna come. And then I ended up having to move because I got the job. And when I called and a few months later, maybe a few moments later, literally, he was like, yeah, man, the guy I was telling you about, he's in LA. He's meeting with a bunch of people. His name's Chance. And, fast forward, Chance the Rapper is one of the biggest acts to ever come out of the city.
Wow.
Sweet.
That's insane.
But, I'm a firm and fond believer that what's meant for you is meant for you. And who knows, we could have met each other and he could have been like, I don't like this guy. We never would have worked together a day.
Yeah.
Or he could have never been what we know him to be now, a legend. So
yeah, that's beautiful how everything is just happenstance in that way. That's awesome. I know Mingyu has some A&R questions as well. So I'll let him
Yeah. So I mean, just going to panels and hosting panels, we all know that music industry is like such a people industry. It's just networking and who you know. And A&R, I feel like it's just such a connection to the artists and to the creatives. I wanted to ask, because I know you mostly work on hip hops and like part of the artists that you worked on, Chance the Rapper, right? With Big Sean, but also you've worked on like people like Alessia Cara, right? So I wanted to ask about just like how, like, what's the difference of like working with like a hip hop artist and working with maybe like a different type of genre, right?
yeah, I feel like I'm genre ambiguous. I end up navigating to more hip hop acts as of recent, but I'm totally open to it and agnostic across all fields. I think nowadays, oddly enough, because sounds are so blurred, genres are becoming more and more blended day by day. There isn't really a huge difference, right? Like you think when I was coming up, rock and roll had a very strong and dominant position within pop music. When you said pop culture music in the late 90s, early 2000s, pop music was Gwen Stefani, No Doubt, the Goo Goo Dolls, like, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera. That was pop music. It had a certain context, certain sound, certain look, certain appeal, and it was the big box retail. Fast forward 15 years later, 16 years later, hip hop is now the dominant force in music. And even the artists that once upon a time would have traditionally been rock and pop, pop has almost disappeared to where when you hear an act like Ariana Grande, is as much as that's pop, that's R&B through and through.
Yeah.
Her most direct comparison is Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey has always been an R&B act. I mean, pop simply means popular within pop culture. So pop culture is always whatever's pop is whatever streams the most, in this era. So I think you find a lot less distinction between acts. If I'm interested in something, it's just because sonically it's appealing. Whether it's someone who 20 years ago might have been considered a pop act, if it's not rock and roll, I feel like it's, open to interpretation nowadays, especially because the top line and rhythm has been so prominent. You find most of the biggest rapper in the world right now, Drake, he sings 40% of his records. So, with that being said, what is a rhythmic record, right? We've kind of reshaped and bent structure and division between melodic harmonies and R&B to, it's a whole new subgenre of rappers that literally sing to a degree, right? It's melodic harmonies blended out. Like you see artists like a Bryson Tiller who kind of blend the lines, and it's called trap soul and stuff like that. You got artists like Future, Young Thug, who've been melodic in their full delivery. You think about artists like PNB Rock, right? And the lines get further and further blurred. Rod Wave, YFN Lucci. These are all acts that, technically have a melodic delivery, but it's still rap. So nowadays it's a lot less delineation than you would think that you have to put forward towards figuring out what's what. You just got to find something that you like, make sure you're in love with it, and pursue it. And wherever the fan base lies, they'll tell you.
Yeah, I love the part where you really have to listen to the fan base, and that they're the audience, right? And building that connection with the artists that way. Everything you said is just beautifully said. Another question. Yeah, another question I wanted to ask is, I guess, which one of your artists that you kind of worked on that you were the most excited about, and why?
Present or past?
Maybe let's do one in the past few years. Yeah.
I had an opportunity to partner with Wale and sign him to Warner. I think this was 2018-ish. He was looking for a new partnership. Everyone knew Wale was one of the biggest hip hop acts of this generation. Ton of huge records, work with everybody from Rihanna to Lady Gaga. So he had covered every gamut. And I think he was just looking for a rejuvenation, new, fresh energy. And we partnered together. And I actually was able to co-produce our first major single, a record by the name of On Chill featuring Jeremiah. And I mean, I'm proud to say right now, I think it's just about triple platinum. But to, identify the record, bring it across the line, and partner with somebody whom you have a tremendous amount of respect for, that was probably, in recent years, one of the more exciting things that I've had the pleasure of embarking on it as a journey. And, I think presently, the glass just keeps getting fuller. And I just keep being able to dig into these, elevations of quality. Right now we're working on Freddie Gibbs's album. It's coming out very soon. And, just navigating through that over the past 3.5 years has been the next chapter. So super excited about that as well.
Yeah, that's totally awesome. Speaking of Wale, you did mention that you produced some of his work. How did you get into producing?
I think when I was 14 or 15, I lied to myself and said I was going to be a producer. And then I realized how technically skilled and how much of a computer whiz you needed to be to plug and play MPCs and drum kits and Fruity Loops. And I was never the technical guy. I was always the artistic guy. So I quickly walked away from that. And the further I got into my career as an A&R and a writer, I was able to partner with people whom I can articulate my vision from a sonic stance on
Mhm.
records, and they would help me execute. Because I mean, between school and work, I never sat back and learned how to play NPCs and all of that programming stuff.
Yeah.
So I
Mhm.
needed someone, I needed producers to help me. I could tell you sonically what I wanted to hear. I could tell you the keys. I knew all of my instruments, but I could not plug it into electronic panels. So I was fortunate to find a few producers that were able to sit with me and say, okay, cool. Tell me how you want this record structured. How do you want to build it out? And let's go from there. And fast forward, they have been able to help me execute my production skills and take them to another level. So I think my style of production is big picture, what you would, think of as, Sean Diddy Combs and how he's been able to tap into production because he's more so, and I think about Quincy Jones and Quincy actually plays instruments as well, but how they can
Mhm.
map out and as almost conductors, map out the entire flow, panel, sample, sequence of a record, and tell a musician where to plug, where to play, which note to hit. They can tell the lyricist or the vocalist, how to deliver the tone, the texture that they're looking for. And you end up being an impresario of sorts, placing these records together and hand stitching them. And that's kind of the school of thought that I come from. You just need somebody that's patient, that's going to help you execute. And you got to learn how to kind of speak producer talk, engineer talk over the years. And that's something that I've uh, I've grown a healthy study to, and still learning every day. You never stop learning with this. Like you got to continuously push yourself to evolve, learn more tricks of the trade. That's the only way you continuously get better.
Yeah, that is so incredibly interesting to me because that's not the first time that I've heard this style of producing. I know that Benny Blanco, which is like he's
Yeah.
one of the hottest producers right now and works with anyone and everyone. And so I remember I think I watched an interview one time where he said that he doesn't play any instruments. He
Mhm.
very much just kind of like sonically, musically, this is what I want. He can somehow verbally tell you what he wants it to look like. Um, that's crazy that that's how that works. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like,
Um,
imagine painting if you had no hands.
yeah,
You're guiding somebody stroke by stroke.
yeah. It's almost like going in blind. That's crazy. That's awesome. That's really cool. I'll pass it back to Mingyu because I know he has a little bit more questions.
Yeah, well, I wanted to say that's just that gives me so much like interest, being able to make music without, specifically knowing all the instruments and whatnot. It's really cool you could go down that route. But a question, so basically on the opposite side of the coin, A&R, it's a lot of like working with people. I wanted to ask, have you ever had to like part ways with an artist? Like you guys maybe just, didn't riff well or something happened, and what were the implications of that?
Yeah, it happens all the time in this industry. As much as the focus is on creative and building sounds and sonics with artists, that's only 50% of it. The other 50% is the business acumen of it. Sometimes relationships reach a peak plateau and it's time for an amicable transition. I mean, sometimes artists might not necessarily want to create. Maybe they want to go in a different direction in terms of creation and find different partners or find a different muse to bring a different sense of inspiration out of them. And I think that's just a part of elevation of growth. And, it's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I actually embrace it. I think that change is healthy because it cycles about, new innovations. And then sometimes, there are other expectations there are other unexpected experiences or occurrences that just take place and you never know how long you can work with an artist. So I think the one thing that I try to focus on is always treating my artists with the utmost respect because at the end of the day, they're the ones bearing them souls, their vulnerabilities, their truths, their fears, and they're putting it out there for the rest of the world to critique and judge and love or, not love. And they're the true champions because they're always at their most vulnerable state with us because they chose to share, right? And so I always want to give them the utmost respect and courtesy in regards to just being vocal and open about communicating, letting them know where I stand and being supportive, whether we're going to work together for the next 50 years or the next 5 months. It's just about treating people with the utmost respect. And that makes every transition or every end of a partnership that much more easier.
Yeah, that's incredibly true. Sometimes I hear from A&R people or just people in the industry that, the creatives or artists can be, kind of hard to work with, but I think it's really true. They are putting their life on the line, their creativity, their backstory, and it's really vulnerable. So it's really cool you kind of, find that connection with them. I guess the question I really wanted to ask is, you previously mentioned that your team is the backbone of, and you kind of riffed off each other. What is something that you really look for when looking for someone to work with, maybe on like the business side more?
Someone that's going to care as much as I do. We all have different disciplines. We all have different areas of expertise, different functionalities. And I try to approach every single artist, every single project that I work on with an equal amount of respect, equal amount of vigor, excitement, attention to detail. And I just want my counterparts to do the exact same thing. Anybody that I work with, I want them to care as much as I care. I'm not saying that you necessarily have to give as much as I'm willing to give to anybody at work, because the A&R is kind of specific. We find the artists and we bring them into the building. So they're kind of like our babies, to a certain extent. You're always going to be a little protective. You're always going to be the one standing on a couch or a chair, for their respect and X, Y, Z. So the relationship between an A&R and an artist is always going to be very askew from any other relationship, I think. But yeah, I just want people that's willing to go as hard as I am. And if I'm willing to go to a 10, at least meet me at an 8, and we'll make up the difference from there.
Yeah, right. Brooklyn, I'll pass it back to you.
Awesome, thank you. Well, kind of on a similar note, working with your team, what is the culture like at Warner?
Warner's refreshing because it's a bunch of people that actually are excited to work together. I would say out of a lot of labels that I've been in, it's very, you hear horror stories about the industry and stuff like that. But this most recent exchange has been refreshing because there's a bunch of people that genuinely just want to see each other win. So you find in every facet, every corner of my label, there's a ton of respect and support, which, just, you got to be super grateful for, whether that's a working relationship, whether it's a personal relationship, best friends. I think that's all anybody can ask for out of any exchange. Just, respect and, consideration, from anybody that you're working with. Especially, we don't have 9 to 5s. Like, my day starts at 7 a.m. on average and ends between midnight to 2 a.m. We work on weekends. We travel frequently. I just landed in Miami, 3 or 4 hours ago, and 2 different time zones. And then you leave, I'll be here, and then I'll travel to Atlanta for a few days and rush back to LA to finish a video shoot, all while writing credits for an album, that's coming out soon, and still juggling everything else that we have to do. So we don't live in traditional spaces where we can shut off on the weekends and start working at 5 p.m. Like traditional jobs. So when you lean on people that much, you just want to know that you're in a space or a place where you're appreciated.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The question I want to go off on that is, I guess, how often do you kind of do those trips and business trips, and what do you kind of do on that? Like, what does it entail?
I mean, more often than not, we travel for, a multitude of reasons. You travel for recording, you travel to shoot videos, you travel for meetings, you travel for promo tours, press obligations, you travel for concerts. Those are normally the gamut of why, I personally would be traveling. And it's pretty frequent. I mean, I think last year, because I try to I try to stay with one specific hotel brand whenever I'm traveling, just because, you want to get the bonus and perks and rewards.
Yeah.
And I think I looked up last year and I spent like 115 days in hotels last year.
Wow.
So, it can be a grind. I'm in a hotel room right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's insane. Well, kind of on that note of being in this industry, oftentimes you can have a job that is not quote unquote normal. You don't have the 9 to 5, you're consistently traveling, working really funky hours. For students like me and Mingyu and students who want to be in the music industry, can you share with us some tips about working in entertainment, maybe whether that be, rookie mistakes, things that we should look out for, stuff that could set us up for success wanting to go into the music business?
Yeah.
I think 2 things, because I feel like a mantra in my life is always less is more. So rather than give you 10 small tips, I'll give you 2 really big ones.
Awesome.
First and foremost, never lose the hunger to work. And I think over time and just in general, a lot of times there are certain expectations of getting jobs in the recording industry, and they're going to be sexy, you're going to be jet setting and in studios and living this lavish lifestyle. But not saying it's not, cool moments to be enjoyed, but it's a lot of groundwork and foundation to be laid before you can get to those moments. And those moments will be fleeting if you're not consistently willing to work. I think oftentimes, I think it's really important for your generation where you guys were born in the era of social media and technology. I mean, you don't know a time where there wasn't a cell phone. They were always there.
Yeah.
And so with the world at your palms, literally, I think sometimes complacency is easy to set. So, being your own harshest critic and making sure that you're not mailing it in, making sure that you're not being complacent, making sure that you're never letting somebody outwork you, because there's always somebody out there just as hungry, if not hungrier than you. Don't rest on your don't rest on your laurels. Don't take opportunities for granted or not be ambitious and really fight. Try to be the star player in the internship. Just reflecting in terms of when I mentioned about me being on the street teams in the college marketing as a college marketing rep prior. I wanted it better than everybody, and I would do any and everything. And sometimes I got taken advantage of because they knew I would do just about anything to get the job done. But, I was the guy that they called on. I was the one that eventually people remembered and would, get the exceptions and the notoriety within, the label as a very young guy trying to make it through because I wanted it just that bad.
Yeah.
And, I was hell bent on no one outworking me. If there was going to be a position that opened, it was going to be mine by virtue of the work that I was willing to put in. So just never give up that sense of work. And then always, the second point being, no matter how high you get up, always be willing to do the dirty work. I think sometimes we get into a place of success and we say, I don't have to do that anymore. I don't believe in that. I believe in whatever I ask you to do for me, I'll do it before I ask you, just to show you how it should be done. There's nothing too big nor too small. And I don't care how high you climb up. That's just been my mantra in life, always assume and rise to the task at hand, no matter, how important it is, because they're all equally important. Somebody's always watching.
Yeah. I love how you talked about your street team days and your internship days and really hustling as a younger professional, right? And speaking of internships, I wanted to ask, does your team kind of work with an intern? Do you bring on interns? And if not, how important is it for you to, talk to the younger generation?
Yeah, I think the label does from a corporate level. I think every year, maybe in the spring semester, they start identifying interns or whatnot. So if there's ever any internship opportunities, everyone should check out wmg.com and go to the career sites, and they'll have the opportunities to open up for internships. But I think, like I said, they normally probably start posting around January, February for summer opportunities. But yeah, I think we have a few interns and stuff like that. And I try to put in the same amount of attention to detail and when I have free time with them as, I would anybody else on the team, because the benefit of being that close to us is to try to soak up some knowledge and or experience. So, I think that's a huge point of growth for all of us to try to kind of sit down and give people a few tea leaves on what to expect as you prepare to get into this industry. Because it might not be for you. It's not for everybody.
Yeah, that's the whole point of the internships. You kind of like test the water to see what's up.
100%.
Yeah, I love that. I wanted to ask this question for I pass it to Brooklyn. Basically, I mean, we've talked about like, tips for people who want to do the business side of music, but I guess what do you have tips for like, the creatives? Maybe someone wants to be a songwriter or an artist or a producer. I know that the level that they're at to reach Warner Records or reach you would have to be, a bit more developed. But I guess like what do you have tips for someone like starting out and building that?
Yeah. Well, never discredit yourself. You'd be surprised at how many people are always listening, always, with their ears open, paying attention on every level. It doesn't have to be huge and established, but also practice your craft daily. If you write, set a set agenda of songs that you can write weekly or daily, and write your ass off. If you are a musician and you're practicing, grow your palette, pick up another instrument. If you've excelled to master one, being a master or sourcing master quality work is something that is finite. There are not enough professionals in any field that are the best at what they do. If you excel, and you always hear the phrase, the cream rises to the top, it's never enough cream. We always need more cream. Extra whipped cream on the cake, extra whipped cream on the ice cream. We never run out of cream, right? Or the desire to have cream. So, just master your quality, master the quality of the work that you do, master your craft. And as you excel and become outrageously proficient in it, there'll always be people like myself paying attention to it, looking to nurture, looking to grow and partner with you. So just really hone in on your quality and your stat, everything that you're going to work on day to day.
It's real introspective and real hustling, right? Yeah. Let's see. Brooklyn, yeah, go ahead.
So other than, the working on their craft part of it, and maybe I can even bring back in kind of the music industry side, how do you encourage both creatives and people who want to work in the industry to grow?
I think by challenging themselves, like the best way to grow is to get around peers. They say man sharp as man, like iron sharp as iron. You want to get around peers that are doing the same thing that you're doing, that are equally excited, and maybe they have different skill sets. If you play guitar, find a pianist. If you're a pianist, find a horn player, right? If you're a songwriter, find a songwriter from another subgenre. Maybe you've been writing, blues records or country. Partner with somebody that's writing, Latin rhythmic records, R&B, and compare and contrast the notes, right? Build and bounce off of each other. But surround yourself by people who are like-minded, working in the same space that you can pull and grow from, because it's very easy to learn from someone who has a completely different mindset and or skill set than you might have in the same field. That's literally how you can perpetuate growth and evolve. You push each other, right? It's like no different than, playing basketball. If you want to make it to the NBA, you play ball against people who might, expose your weakness, and in turn make your weakness that much stronger, because you're constantly sharpening that weakness so you can beat the person that's in front of you who exploited it in the beginning. So it's no different than that. Whatever you might be, whatever you might lack skills of, find somebody who's stronger at it, work on it daily.
Okay, that's awesome. I know that you touched on exploitation, and we touched on positive tips for creatives and people who want to work in the industry. Kind of taking it back, are there things that creatives and people in the industry should be weary of while on their journey to success?
Yeah, I think, no different in any industry. There's always going to be pitfalls and learning curves or whatnot. A lot of it comes from a lack of experience, naivety. I think, uh, a lack of humility. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier, like never having a job too big or too small, like willing to accept willing to accept every challenge. But then also when you get into these spaces, appreciate the space you in, know how rare it is, know how hard it is to get there and how many people actually would, do anything to be in that space had they had the opportunity. So appreciate it, and never take it for granted. And I think if you can start from that point, that'll help you dodge a lot of unnecessarily negative energy. Just be willing to work. And then sometimes when you think that it's taking a little too long, have some patience. I noticed that, with a lot of the younger, the younger, I would say, um, ages 21 to 28, 29. Nowadays, everyone wants the instant gratification. They want it right away, right?
Mhm.
And, I remember, starting my career in this industry at 20 and working until, up to this point. I probably didn't see fruit start to bear till I was 32. So it's like, how bad do you want it? Are you willing to sacrifice? Uh, those will be the majority of the pitfalls that you'll see. A lot of the wounds are self-inflicted, so just don't get in your own way.
Yeah, your positive messages are outstanding of, being humble, being patient. Um, that's awesome. And just working hard and keeping your head low, especially in an industry where, ego is kind of everywhere. And like you said, people want instant gratification. I think that's, as a result of this generation being raised on social media, where we always get that instant gratification.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love your advice of just being humble and working hard.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I love asking this next question, and obviously tell us like as much as you can legally, but like I wanted to know like what's on your slate for you right now? Like what are you working on?
I think the biggest thing I'm wrapping up, we kind of touched on it a few minutes ago. Um, Freddie Gibbs' next album,
Mhm.
working on that. That'll come sooner than later. Also working alongside a very talented young songstress and slash lyricist by the name of Chica. She's working
Yeah.
on her next project as well. Super excited about that. A few other projects in development that we're trying to get, through the threshold. Some surprises during the third and fourth quarter. So uh, I'm looking forward to being able to talk about those a little bit more in the weeks and months to come.
Cool. Yeah. Chica's amazing. I love the youthful and like witty energy she brings in her music, right?
Chica is easily, I would say Chica is easily the single most talented young female artist uh, that I've come across in this generation,
Wow.
by none.
That's amazing. And I'm excited to see her more work, right? It's coming
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Yeah. I also really like asking this question as like the SVP of A&R at Warner Records. I want to know how often do you kind of interface with different departments? I know in the past you did
Every
say
day,
you
every
everything.
day, every day, every day. We're not, you can't do your job. Like I said, you're leaning on the other departments, whether it's commerce, marketing, publicity, social media and engagement. You need all of those things to function and flow so I can do what I do at a premium level. But yeah, we very much so depend on each other wholeheartedly.
Cool. It's like a real tight-knit family for sure.
Yeah.
Um, One more question I want to really ask is, what is like changing in the industry that it's like really interesting to you that you would really want to hop onto, whether that could be, digital marketing side like TikTok, how that really changed the industry few years back, what's like really big?
I think right now, I think right now, the biggest thing that I'm super excited, I'm like, I want to learn more about that. Not so much TikTok itself, but we notice these huge TikTok trends, right? Where it's like a song is super viral. I hate using the term.
Yeah.
A song is super viral. We'll see it explode everywhere and it'll get all these creates and stuff like that. But oftentimes when it goes to streaming, they don't always translate. So I'm kind of doing a keen observation of myself. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? Does a great record or a catchy record just so happen to make TikTok creates all the more fun? Or can a TikTok create surrounding a record or a sound to translate or influence mainstream consumption on radio, on DSP, Spotify, Apple Title, Amazon, and push consumption? Something I'm kind of watching. I know I'm getting kind of a little deeper in the wormhole, but yeah, it's a keen observation of mine, trying to figure out what comes first, the chicken or the egg.
Yeah.
Not that it's something that I'm overly focused on, but I think it's important for us to understand the metrics of consumption within these new technologies and how they directly impact our lifestyles. Yeah, so it's a learning experience. Like I said, you should never stop learning. You got to keep learning.
Soaking it all up. Yeah. I'm gonna pass back to Brooklyn.
My final question that I wanted to ask is, you're obviously very successful in producing and an A&R. Is there maybe a facet of your industry that maybe you haven't touched, or something that you would like to morph into? You already wear so many hats as it is. What's next?
One day when when the record labels kick me out, I think I'll try my hand at taking my talents to the film world, maybe scoring films, and kind of building and molding the sound around live action films, from the soundtracks, to properly score a few films. One of my inspirations, Pharrell, I saw him do that with the Despicable Me franchise, and I totally adore how he was able to turn something family fun but make the music still compelling and catchy. So we'll see. I'm no Pharrell, but one day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, winding down, where can aspiring professionals find you? On social media or LinkedIn?
Oh yeah.
Keep up with you.
I think the easiest way to stay in contact or reach out is probably Instagram. I'm on there pretty frequently. You can find me at Pop Tart Poppy, at Pop Tart Poppy.
Awesome name.
Yeah, POPTARTPAPI _
Awesome.
And I try to check my DMs frequently. So any questions, please reach out.
Sweet. That's awesome. And I mean, we really appreciate you speaking with us again today. I know me and Mingyu both got so much out of this as aspiring people in the industry, and we're going to share this on our YouTube channel with the students. And I know they're going to gain so much from this, and we just really appreciate you doing this with us. We really do.
Thank you. I really appreciate you all having me.